Thank you very much. I'm Khadija Ismailova. I'm a journalist, not related to Zahra Ismailova. So, just in order to know, not all Aliyevs are related to Aliyev, not all Ismailovas are related to Ismailov. Anyways, let's go to the question. Well, I felt really uncomfortable when you were speaking about Gezi Park movement in Turkey and fight for public spaces in Georgia. Well, we have to separate these two things. Things happening in Turkey and in Georgia and what is happening in the rest of the South Caucasus, in Azerbaijan and Armenia. Well, in those cases, we are speaking about liberal democracy versus democracy. Elected, legitimate power is becoming more and more authoritarian and getting all the spaces, trying to interfere to lives of people, and people are fighting for, minorities are fighting for their rights. That's what we were talking about. In Georgia, it was minority trying to get some space in public life. In Turkey, it's the Erdogan government enjoys the support of the huge number of voters. In Armenia and Azerbaijan, and especially in Azerbaijan, we cannot speak about legitimacy of the government at all because they are not elected. There were no elections in Azerbaijan, and the elections are a joke in Azerbaijan. And so we are speaking their basic democracy, their not liberal democracy, not the right of minority to have its say in democratic process. We are speaking about the right of human being to say something, to have a say in public life. So to right of existence, we are speaking. There is a poet. He's from Iran and Azerbaijan, but his two lines became very popular. They were viral in Azerbaijan, especially in social media, that people were sharing and sharing. Just two lines explaining what we are fighting for and what our existence is about. It's a love poem, in fact. It says, "You can't deny that you said you love me. The guy tapping our phone is a witness." So we are fighting for private space. We are fighting for right to existence. It's very fundamental things that we are fighting for. And I remember my conversation with my Georgian friend who was complaining about Saakashvili not being Democrat enough and so on. And I was saying, what's the problem? You have rallies in the city center. It was before the latest rally crackdown. And she said they didn't provide mobile toilets when opposition had a rally. It was mean, she said. She was angry. And I didn't know what to say because well, opposition in Azerbaijan doesn't spend enough time in rally spaces to have insurgency, you know? And so it's totally different things we are fighting about. And when in 2007, the journalist was beaten up when he was covering the destruction of the olive garden, Amir Khalil, Azerbaijani journalist, nobody complained about destruction of the park, and there was no public protest against, because there are more urgent, more fundamental rights that people are afraid to write and to fight about. And so the media was on the front line and still is on the front line. And now the social media is joining and bringing more citizenship to media's contribution to this process. So for many years, media was basically the only were Elmar Husseinov, the journalist. He was writing things. He was investigating. He was writing about the president and his family, and he was killed. And then there was a silence for many years, for several years. And then again investigations, and the journalists are getting beaten up, kidnapped, and because they are in front line, because journalists are basically before NGOs, before parties, political parties that are marginalized. They are in the front of everyone. They are the only ones fighting. So that was what we disagree as an NGO representative. But for many years, we didn't have any support. We were feeling lonely in that field. And now the citizens are coming through this collectivism. And social media organizes more and more people in the conditions when organizations, the political parties, and NGOs lose their spaces every day when they cannot address people. I remember the quote by Khomeini when he came back from France after Islamic Revolution, and he said Islam could survive in Iran only thanks to the funerals where the clerics could still address the crowd, the mourning ceremonies, traditional mourning ceremonies, where they could still speak and have the crowd listening to them, and Islam could survive during Shah time in those little spaces. Well, that's the case in Azerbaijan. The only space where people can still gather and listen to something is funeral. And there they listen to clerics. There is no space, no public space where secular authorities, I mean the secular thinker, can address people. The recent case of the crackdown is when the Free Thought University, Azad Fikir University, it's youth organization organizing public lectures in a space which can fit like 160 people, that it was sealed and shut down because the government doesn't want to let people to listen to people like Rahman Badalo or Zohrab Ismail or any other thinker, popular thinker, and listen. The government doesn't want to let people to gather together and discuss things. So even indoor spaces are now closed for public. And even, we are not speaking about outdoor spaces. So Rob already mentioned that the central squares are closed to any protest. And when youth are going to have unsanctioned protest in one of the public squares, they get arrested for that. I myself was arrested and fined for participating in a rally against police violence. So I'm a taxpayer, and I don't want my taxes to be spent on police crackdown on people. And after the violent events in Ismaili town, we went to say stop the police violence against citizens. And I was arrested, detained there for several hours, and then the court decided that I had to pay 400 euros. This was one of the lowest amounts that was detained by the court. It was like from 400 euros to 2,500 euros. This was the range of the fines decided by the court on that day. So in the country where the teacher's salary is 130 euros, 400 euros is not something affordable. Okay, I can afford it, but I'm not paying because I consider it anti-constitutional. I'm now carrying out the civic disobedience campaign on not paying these fines because I don't want to pay for exercising my fundamental rights. And this is the reality we live in when the opposition leader is being stopped on the road, on the way, when he goes to the funeral ceremony of his friend's father, just because the government doesn't want opposition leader to appear in the crowded place, so people could see him, could arrest him. And there is also another attempt to present any critique as a loser. So the government pushes on international organizations to not to invite critiques of the government to conferences as speakers. And there were several cases when OSCE first invited and then uninvited people because the government told them then nobody from the government will come if these people appear there. So this is how the government tries to control the public space. The same with TV. We haven't seen any opposition on TV for many years, except the pre-election 4-minute slots that are designed by the law. So, and when you are speaking about defending the park from destruction and so on, it's kind of, I feel really uncomfortable there. Like we have much less to say about civic activism, and one of the reasons for that is the weak citizenship. And here I will probably address the question that raised in your minds while you were looking at those pictures Zohran was showing. Why would people tolerate that? Why do Azerbaijanis tolerate all this? Violation of their property rights, destruction, and slavery, low salaries. When we live in a country where people, like more than 1 million people get officially, that's official figure, get salaries that is not much more than the minimum wage in the country, which is 95 euros. So more than 1 million people get only that. So teachers in the country receive 130 euros, doctors receive 140 euros, and why do people tolerate that? And there is a system that is built to enslave. There is a system that is built to enslave people, and this is a very sophisticated system, which involves a lot of people. For example, 22 years after independence, Azerbaijan, the Baku city, still doesn't have a land cadastre. So nobody knows what land belongs to whom. And there were no legal offers, very few legal offers in the market when people flooded to the capital city because there were no other jobs in regions. So people came to Baku and there were no legal offers. People still paid money but got homes with no documents or with non-legal documents, which didn't have good enough documents for that. So, and these people, it's 500,000 families, it's at least 1 million voters I'm talking about. These people were living in fear that one day bulldozer will come and destroy their house, so they had to shut up. The same with small and medium businesses who were forced by government agencies to pay bribes and have illegal documents for their illegal things when they run their businesses, or doctors who have to take bribes because their salary is too low. The teachers who use the schools as a recruitment place for private tutoring rather than teaching in the school because their salary is too low. So very large number of people became forced accomplices of the criminal system. And that's why they were afraid, because they were paying bribe and doing something illegal in this country. They are doing something illegal. And that's why they are afraid. But I want to end now because the time is out, and I want to end on an optimistic note. An optimistic note is based on what Zohrab was talking about. It's these 500,000 families which didn't have good documents for their houses and were afraid of the system, now feel a little bit more relaxed. You know why? Because the government, one day, First Lady or one of their daughters or someone in the government decided that they want part with business centers in the city center. In the city center where people do have documents for their houses. So they started destroying the houses that had legal documents. And the greed was so big that the government started doing itself acting illegally against law-abiding citizens. Then the fear was gone, because now people understand that the lack of their documents is not a problem. The lack of rule of law is a problem. And they are equal before the system, facing the system. System doesn't discriminate them to legal binding or non-legal binding, or law-abiding or not law-abiding citizens. Everyone is rightless. Everyone is equal in this system. Everyone is equally have no rights. That's what the system showed them, because the greed was so big and they didn't stop it in time. And now that caused people to go out and protest in front of them. So what we say, there is no 0 point here, you know? It cannot go beyond 0. So when it approaches to 0, it has to go up. So now it's going up. That's an optimistic note I want to